Well, I think your point on the quote is well taken. He probably didn't have to say this. This is Freddie Kitchens has said a few things he probably didn't have to say. Rookie head coach. And listen, the Browns have a coach, a quarterback, and a star wide receiver who are on the spectrum, on the more talkative side of things. So you're going to get more of these quotes. But to the meat of it, will he be able to actually accomplish it? I don't see why not. Like, how many targets do you think Odell and Jarvis need to be happy? 140? 150? Something like that?
Yep.
Man, that's what Thielen and Diggs got last year in Minnesota, who I think a lot of people thought were the best duo of wide receivers in football. You can throw the ball to Odell and Jarvis around 150 times over the course of the season each. You can throw the ball to David Njoku 80 to 90 times, still have 50-some-odd throws carved out for Nick Chubb, and you still have 150 or so if Baker's going to throw the ball between 550 and 600 times over the course of the year. I don't think this is going to be an issue because I don't think it's so much that there's 8 guys on the Browns that are going to expect to be major contributors. It's that you've got 2 wide receivers who have been number ones in their career, an up-and-coming tight end, and a running back backfield that by the end of the year is going to have 2 guys that think they can be a feature back. But at the beginning of the year, it's just Nick Chubb. And Canty, last year, Nick Chubb got 12 carries per game. He's going to get well more than that early in the season. So I don't think this is actually going to be a problem.
Well, I hear you when you're saying that you don't think it's going to be a problem, but the reality is you can't make everybody happy every single game. And that's the problem that Freddie Kitchens is going to have to address, because there's going to be somebody that's going to get frustrated, whether it's Odell Beckham, whether it's Jarvis, Landry, Nick Chubb. Somebody is going to have to sacrifice for the greater good. And that becomes my primary concern for this Cleveland Browns team coming into this season. How is this rookie head coach, Freddie Kitchens, going to manage all the big personalities in that locker room, all the big personalities on the offensive side of the ball? You mentioned how talkative they are. When you start talking to the media and you're open and sometimes a little too honest, you're going to open yourself up to a higher degree of scrutiny. And I think that's exactly what the Browns are teetering on before they even kicked off and played a game. So I am a little bit concerned about Freddie Kitchens' overall ability to set the agenda for the team and get everybody to buy in. Throughout the course of an NFL season, every team is going to have to deal with some kind of adversity. And are you going to be able to keep those guys right there buying into what you're selling if you're losing games? That's the biggest question. I don't know if Freddie Kitchens can do that. John Dorsey has tried to set it up where he can have as much success as possible. They brought in Odell Beckham's college wide receiver coach. You got Steve Wilks, a former head coach, as your defensive coordinator. So he's got some other guys that he can lean on in terms of being able to manage the guys in the locker room. But it's going to come down to Freddie Kitchens' ability to manage the personalities.
But when it comes to keeping guys happy, we're really talking about the wide receiver group. You don't very often hear running backs say, I feel like I got shortchanged on carries. Occasionally that happens, but I don't think that's a concern. That's where, to me, the relationship between Jarvis and Odell is so critical. These are guys that you mentioned the college wide receivers coach. These were college teammates, very good friends, call each other best friends from before they even got to LSU. And they both wanted this duo to come together. Jarvis wanted Odell there. Odell wanted to go there. So it would be, to me, very odd if all of a sudden there is some discontent if in one game somebody gets 16 targets and the other guy gets 8. It also should be noted Jarvis last year was getting 12 targets a game when the Browns weren't winning, went down to 7 a game when they started winning the second half of the year, and I didn't hear any complaints from him. I didn't hear Jarvis all of a sudden whining about it because Jarvis and Odell also have already gotten paid. So I don't think this is going to be a problem.
Is there an understanding, though, that now that Odell's there, Odell's your number 1 receiver and Jarvis isn't? I mean, does the variance of pecking order sort of trickle down to the players, and is that accepted?
Well, it definitely does change, but the fact that Odell and Jarvis do have a prior relationship and they played together in college, you would think that you'd be able to smooth that over, because the reality is when defenses go into game plan for the Cleveland Browns on a week-in, week-out basis, Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be the guy that you have to stop. He's the one that's going to dictate front and coverage, and Jarvis Landry will fall to your number 2 or number 3 option within that offense. All I'm saying is when you have those guys taken away from the opposing defense, are they going to be satisfied? Even if the team does win, are they going to be satisfied with not necessarily getting the numbers that they're accustomed to?
And that would, if they're winning and any of these guys complain, that would surprise me. Now, your point that when you go through the rough spot,
would it surprise you?
It would. If they're winning, listen, I know Odell's, and I don't think I'm biased on this, but maybe I am. I believe that Odell's biggest issue has been a lack of winning. Now, as far as his attitude, if you will, his sideline antics, it's not there. There weren't a lot of clips of the Giants up 35-14, but Odell has 2 catches for 7 yards, and he's throwing a fit. It's when it's 3rd and 6, he was open, he doesn't get the ball, they end up punting, and then he threw a fit on the sideline. I would be surprised if the Browns are 8-4, and the storyline is Odell Beckham Jr. or Jarvis Landry are upset because they're not being featured more. And as far as the decided hierarchy, Odell was the #1 receiver in college. Odell went higher in the draft than Jarvis. Odell's had a better career than Jarvis. I think Jarvis understands he is a really, really good receiver in this league. He's not Odell Beckham Jr.
Well, here's the one thing I say. I mean, you can't make it a given that Odell is going to be a good soldier for Freddie Kitchens and the Cleveland Browns when he's proven that he hasn't when he was with the New York Giants. I mean, Odell was working on his 3rd head coach by the time they decided that the disruptions that he brought to the table weren't worth the production that they were getting on the field. So, I mean, we still have to take a wait-and-see approach as far as that goes. Now, he is probably playing with a more talented quarterback at this stage of his career in Baker Mayfield than he was with the New York Giants and Eli Manning. But as far as this Cleveland Browns experiment is concerned, I mean, there has to be some winning to support all of the things that Freddie Kitchens has been preaching all offseason long in terms of trying to turn the page with the culture of the team, trying to get to a stage where they're consistently competitive. So I think that this is one of those situations that's volatile. It can go either way. I think if this team gets off to a fast start, it will probably lend itself to these guys being able to be managed a little better by the coaching staff and the hierarchy in the organization.
I think that's why I've been, and a lot of people have been hesitant to go ahead and put them in the playoffs already, is just because I'd love to see what they do. We know what they can do on paper. I'd love to see, let them win a couple games.
Well, the next step is this team being able to compete for the playoffs. I mean, they came to about as close as you can get from being a 500 team without being a 500 team last year. So I think now this Cleveland Browns team should be focused on trying to win the division or get a wild card and get into the postseason. We'll see if they can get the job done. But I think a lot of people would be disappointed if we get to December and the Cleveland Browns are not in the conversation for the postseason.
In the Browns' defense, it's very, very difficult to win games before the season starts. So we're going to have to wait and see.
That's your opinion, Nick. That's your
opinion. Come on, man. Don't be that guy.
That's your opinion.
I want to see them do it. Well, the season starts in 2 days.
Okay, well, we can put them in the playoffs once they've won at least a game. How about that?
I'll just say this. The 2 teams in their division they're going to be competing with, Steelers and the Ravens, they got a better track record of being in the postseason than the Browns.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.